The stars burned cold against the black of space as Commander Jake Morrison stared at the latest reports. His hands shook slightly as he read the numbers again. 17 star systems, 43 colonies, over 2 million beings dead or missing. All because of one creature. The beast had no real name. The Galactic Council simply called it the Warbeast because no one could think of anything else. It was bigger than most buildings, standing nearly 50 meters tall when it raised itself to full height. Its body looked like it was made of living crystal, dark purple and blue pieces that fit together like armor. But this was not armor that someone had put on the creature. This was part of its body, grown naturally like scales on a fish or fur on a dog. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked out the window of his ship, the horizon's edge. Somewhere out there in the darkness, the beast was moving from system to system, destroying everything in its path. No one knew where it came from. No one knew what it wanted. They only knew that it killed. The creature was smart. That made it even more dangerous. After each battle, it learned new things. If the defenders used energy weapons, the beast would grow stronger against energy attacks. If they used physical weapons like missiles, its crystal skin would get thicker. The beast was like a living computer that could change itself to become better at fighting. Dr. Lisa Hamilton walked into the command room carrying a thick stack of papers. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms, and she had been studying the beast for months. Her brown hair was messy from working long hours, and her glasses sat crooked on her nose. "Any new information?" Jake asked her. Lisa set down her papers and sighed. "The pattern is getting clearer. The beast is not just attacking randomly. It seems to be looking for something. Looking for what? I don't know yet, but watch this." Lisa turned on the main screen and showed video from the last attack. The beast moved through the Zephyrian colony like it was searching. It would stop at certain buildings and seem to listen or smell the air. Then it would move on, leaving some areas completely untouched while destroying others completely. Jake watched the video carefully. The beast's movements did look strange now that Lisa pointed it out. "You think it's intelligent?" "Very intelligent. Maybe more than we thought. Look at its eyes in this footage." Lisa zoomed in on the creature's massive head. Its eyes were large and dark like deep pools of water, but there was something in them that looked almost sad. "Sad?" Jake laughed, but not because he thought it was funny. "Lisa, this thing has killed millions of people." "I know. But look at the way it moves when it's not fighting. See how its head tilts when it hears certain sounds. That's not the behavior of a mindless killer. That's the behavior of something that might be lost or confused." Jake did not want to think of the beast as anything other than a monster. It was easier that way. Monsters could be killed without feeling bad about it. But if Lisa was right, if the creature was intelligent and maybe even suffering, then everything became much more complicated. The communication system beeped with an incoming message. Jake pressed the button to receive it. "This is Admiral Carter, from the Galactic Defense Fleet. All ships in Sectors 7 through 12 are to maintain current positions. The Cronin Battlemasters have engaged the target and are reporting heavy resistance." Jake and Lisa looked at each other. The Cronin were the best fighters in the galaxy. They were huge, strong, and had never lost a battle in over 300 years. If they could not stop the beast, nothing could. 2 hours later, they received another message. "The Cronin Battlemasters have been defeated. Casualty reports are coming in now. The target has moved on to the next system." Lisa sat down heavily in her chair. The Cronin failed too, just like everyone else. Jake pulled up the list of previous attempts to stop the beast. The synthetic collective had sent their best war robots. The beast had learned how to turn the robots against each other. The Veil Consortium had tried to control the creature's mind with their psychic powers. The beast had somehow blocked them completely and then destroyed their entire fleet. "What? About the humans?" Lisa asked. "Have we tried anything yet?" Jake shook his head. "Earth Defense Fleet says we don't have anything that the other species haven't already tried. Our weapons are not as advanced as the Cronin. Our technology is not as good as the synthetic collective. Our psychic abilities are nothing compared to the Veil Consortium." "Maybe that's exactly why we should try," Lisa said quietly. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Another message came through the communication system. This one was different. It was not from the military, it was from a civilian ship. This is Captain Ben Rogers of the colony ship New Hope. We have a problem. Our navigation system was damaged in a solar storm 3 days ago. We are drifting off course and cannot correct our path. Our current trajectory will take us directly through the area where the beast was last seen. Jake felt his stomach drop. A colony ship full of families, including children, was heading straight toward the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. How many people are on board? Jake asked. 200 souls, sir. Mostly families looking to start new lives on the outer rim. We have limited defensive capabilities. If we encounter the target, we will not survive. Lisa was already working at her computer, calculating trajectories and distances. They'll reach the beast's territory in about 18 hours, she said. And based on the creature's movement pattern, it will be right in their path. Jake opened communication channels to every military ship in the area. This is Commander Morrison. We have a civilian vessel in distress heading toward the target. All available ships are to converge on these coordinates and prepare for rescue operations. As the crew of the Horizon's Edge prepared for what might be their final battle, Jake could not shake the feeling that something was about to change. Lisa's words kept repeating in his mind. Maybe the reason humans should try was exactly because they were not like the other species. The beast had defeated every advanced civilization that had tried to stop it. It had learned to counter every weapon, every strategy, every technology that had been used against it. But no one had tried the one thing that humans did better than anyone else in the galaxy. No one had tried to understand it. In the darkness of space, the Warbeast continued its journey through the stars. Its massive crystal body moved with purpose, always searching, always listening. Deep in its ancient mind, something stirred. A memory, perhaps, or maybe just a hope. It had been alone for so long that it had almost forgotten what it was looking for, but something was coming. Something different from all the others who had tried to fight it. The beast could sense it in the way that old, wise creatures sense changes in the world around them. The colony ship New Hope drifted helplessly through space, carrying its cargo of human dreams and human fears toward an encounter that would change the galaxy forever. And on that ship, an 8-year-old girl named Katie Sullivan pressed her face against a small window, looking out at the stars and wondering what adventures waited for her in the vast darkness of space. Captain Ben Rogers wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the broken navigation controls. Sparks still flew from the damaged panel where the solar storm had fried the main circuits 3 days ago. His small crew had tried everything they could think of, but the colony ship New Hope continued to drift through space like a leaf in the wind. Any luck with the backup systems? Ben asked his engineer, Tony Martinez. Tony shook his head and climbed out from under the control panel. His hands were covered in grease and small cuts from working with the sharp metal pieces. The whole navigation array is gone, Captain. We're flying blind until we can reach a repair station. Ben looked at the star charts spread across his desk. Their current path would take them directly through the area where the Warbeast had last been spotted. Every ship in the galaxy was avoiding that region, but the New Hope had no choice. They could not change course. In the passenger sections of the ship, 200 colonists tried to live their normal lives while fear grew in their hearts. Most of them were families who had sold everything they owned on Earth to buy passage to the Outer Rim colonies. They wanted to start fresh on a new world, far from the crowded cities and polluted skies of their home planet. Katie Sullivan sat in the observation lounge with her parents, Danny and Ruth. She pressed her small nose against the thick glass window and watched the stars slowly drift by. At 8 years old, Katie was not afraid of space travel like some of the other children. She thought the stars were beautiful, like diamonds scattered on black cloth. "Tell me again about Grandma's farm," Katie said to her mother. Ruth smiled and put her arm around her daughter. "Well, Grandma had chickens and cows and 3 dogs. The biggest dog was named Max. He was a German shepherd and he was taller than you when he stood on his back legs." "Was he mean?" Katie asked. "Oh no, sweetie. Max looked scary because he was so big, but he was the gentlest dog you ever saw. He would let you ride on his back and never complained. Grandma always said that the biggest animals usually have the softest hearts." Danny looked worried as he watched his wife and daughter talk. He had heard the rumors about what was happening in this part of space. Ships were disappearing. Whole colonies were being destroyed. Something terrible was out there, and they were flying straight toward it. On the bridge, Captain Rogers received a message from Commander Morrison on the horizon's edge. "Captain Rogers, this is the Earth Defense Fleet. We are tracking your position and moving to intercept. You need to know that you are heading directly toward hostile territory." "We know, Commander," Ben replied, "but we cannot change course. Our navigation is completely dead." "Understood. We will do everything we can to reach you before any contact occurs. Maintain your current heading and prepare your passengers for possible emergency procedures." Ben closed the communication and called his crew together. "Listen up, everyone. We might be in serious trouble soon. I want all emergency systems checked and ready. If something happens, we need to be able to get people to the escape pods fast." The hours crawled by like days. The colonists could feel the tension in the air. Parents held their children closer. People spoke in whispers. Everyone knew something was wrong, even if they did not know exactly what. Katie continued to sit by the window, drawing pictures on a small tablet her parents had given her. She drew the stars and the planets they had passed. She drew pictures of the farm they were going to build on their new world. And sometimes she drew pictures of animals, thinking about the stories her grandmother had told her. Then, 18 hours after the solar storm had damaged their ship, everything changed. Thus, first sign was a shadow. At first, it looked like just another asteroid or piece of space debris. But as it got closer, the people watching from the observation windows realized it was moving on its own. It was alive. The Warbeast appeared out of the darkness like a nightmare, made real. Its massive crystal body caught the light from distant stars and threw it back in sharp colored beams. Purple and blue pieces of its natural armor shifted and moved as it approached the helpless colony ship. Captain Rogers watched his instruments in horror as the creature's size became clear. "Dear God," he whispered. "It's as big as a city building." Panic spread through the ship like fire. People screamed and ran through the corridors. Parents grabbed their children and headed for the escape pods, even though everyone knew the small pods would never survive in deep space. But Katie did not run. She stayed at the window, watching the great beast with curious eyes instead of frightened ones. There was something about the way it moved that reminded her of the stories her mother had told her about Max. The beast moved slowly and carefully, like it was trying not to damage the ship by accident. Its massive head turned this way and that, as if it was looking for something specific. Its eyes, huge and dark like pools of deep water, seemed sad rather than angry. "Mommy," Katie called to her mother, who was trying to pack their emergency bag. "Look at his eyes, he looks lost." Ruth glanced at the window and gasped when she saw how close the creature had come. "Katie, get away from there right now." But Katie did not move. She kept watching the beast, and the beast seemed to be watching her back. Its enormous head tilted slightly to one side, like a dog trying to figure out a new sound. On the bridge, Captain Rogers watched his weapons systems power up automatically. The ship's computer had detected the threat and was preparing to defend itself. But Ben knew their small defensive guns would be like throwing rocks at a mountain. "Hold fire," he ordered his crew. "Our weapons won't do any good, and they might make it angry." The beast moved closer until it was floating just a few meters from the ship's hull. Everyone could see its crystal skin in perfect detail now. The purple and blue pieces fit together like a complex puzzle, and energy seemed to flow between them like blood through veins. Katie noticed that some of the crystal pieces were cracked or damaged. The beast had been in many fights, and it carried the scars of all of them. She wondered if it hurt. The creature's weapon systems began to glow with a bright white light. Energy built up along its arms and shoulders like electricity in storm clouds. Everyone on the ship knew what was coming next. The beast was preparing to attack. But then something strange happened. The beast stopped. Its weapons powered down, and its head tilted again, this time looking directly at the observation window where Katie sat. Katie waved at the creature like she would wave at a friendly neighbor. The beast's massive eye focused on her small hand moving back and forth behind the glass. "Hello," Katie said quietly, even though she knew the creature could not hear her through the thick walls of the ship. But somehow, the beast seemed to understand. Its posture changed from threatening to curious. The energy weapons went completely dark. For the first time since anyone had encountered it, the Warbeast did not attack. Commander Morrison, watching from his ship several million kilometers away, could not believe what his instruments were showing him. "The creature has powered down all weapon systems," he reported to his crew. "I repeat, the target is no longer showing hostile behavior." Dr. Hamilton studied her readings with growing excitement. "Jake, you need to see this. The creature's biosigns have changed completely. Its stress hormones are dropping fast and new brain activity is showing up in areas we've never seen active before." On the colony ship, Katie continued to watch the great beast with wonder instead of fear. She had always been good with animals back on Earth. Stray cats would come to her, and nervous dogs would calm down when she petted them. Her grandmother had said she had a gift. Now, looking at the saddest, loneliest creature she had ever seen, Katie felt that same gentle feeling in her heart. The beast was not a monster. It was just scared and confused and very, very alone. The creature floated near the ship for several more minutes, watching Katie through the window. Then slowly and carefully, it moved away and waited, as if it wanted to follow the ship, but did not know if it was welcome. Katie pressed both hands against the glass and smiled at her new friend. Katie pressed her face closer to the window and looked at the giant creature floating near their ship. Everyone else was still running around in panic, but Katie felt calm. The beast reminded her so much of Max, her grandmother's big dog. Max had looked scary to strangers because he was so large, but Katie had always known he was gentle inside. "Hey there, big guy," Katie said softly to the glass. She knew the creature could not hear her, but talking to animals had always made her feel better. "You look really sad. Are you lost too?" Captain Rogers was about to order everyone to the escape pods when something impossible happened. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and Katie's small voice came through the speakers. Someone had accidentally left the external communication channel open, and now her gentle words were being broadcast into space. The effect on the Warbeast was immediate and shocking. The massive creature, which had destroyed entire fleets without blinking, suddenly became very still. Its huge head moved closer to the ship, and its dark eyes focused on the observation window where Katie sat. Commander Morrison, watching from his ship far away, saw his instruments light up with readings he had never seen before. "Dr. Hamilton, are you seeing this?" Lisa Hamilton stared at her computer screen in amazement. "The creature's brain activity has completely changed. It's producing chemicals that look like the ones mammals make when they bond with each other. Jake, I think it's trying to communicate." On the colony ship, Katie continued talking to the beast as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I bet you're really lonely out here. Space is so big and empty. Do you have any friends?" The creature made a sound, but it was not the terrible roar that had haunted the nightmares of every military officer in the galaxy. This sound was softer, almost like a purr or a whale song. It seemed to come from deep inside the beast's chest. Katie smiled. "Oh, you can talk. That's wonderful. I'm Katie. What's your name?" The beast tilted its massive head and made another sound, different from the first one. Katie listened carefully, like she was trying to understand a new language. "I can't understand your words yet," she admitted, "but I can tell you're trying to tell me something important. Are you trying to say you're sorry for scaring everyone?" Dr. Hamilton's instruments detected subsonic frequencies coming from the creature. "It's not just making random noise," she told Commander Morrison over the communication link. "These sound patterns are too complex to be accidental. It really is trying to communicate." Captain Rogers stood frozen on his bridge, watching a conversation that should have been impossible. His 8-year-old passenger was somehow talking to the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, and the creature was talking back. Katie's parents finally found her in the observation lounge. They had been searching the ship in panic when they heard her voice over the speakers. "Katie!" her mother Ruth cried. Get away from there right now. But Katie held up her hand. Wait, Mommy. He's not mean. Look at his eyes, he's just confused and scared. Danny Sullivan looked out the window at the enormous crystal beast and felt his knees go weak. Honey, that thing has killed millions of people. Maybe he didn't mean to, Katie said seriously. Sometimes when animals are really scared or hurt, they act mean even when they don't want to. Remember what Grandma said about the time Max bit the mailman? He was sick and didn't understand that the mailman was trying to help. Ruth remembered that story. Max had been suffering from an ear infection that made him dizzy and confused. When the mailman tried to give him a treat, Max had snapped at him out of fear and pain. But once they got Max to the veterinarian and fixed his ear, he went back to being the gentlest dog in the world. Katie turned back to the window and continued her conversation with the beast. Are you hurt somewhere? Is that why you've been so angry? The creature made a low, mournful sound that seemed to come from its very soul. Even the adults listening could hear the sadness in it. Oh, you poor thing, Katie said, her voice full of sympathy. You've been hurting for a long time, haven't you? And nobody knew how to help you because they were all too scared to listen. Commander Morrison was receiving reports from ships all across the sector. Every military vessel in the area was watching, their instruments in disbelief as the Warbeast, the terror of the galaxy, had what appeared to be a friendly conversation with a human child. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're getting messages from Admiral Carter. He wants to know if we should attack while the creature is distracted. Absolutely not, Morrison replied firmly. Tell all ships to hold their positions and observe only. This is the first peaceful contact anyone has ever had with that creature. We're not going to ruin it by shooting at it. Katie seemed to sense that the beast was feeling better. Its posture had changed from the aggressive hunting stance it usually held to something more relaxed. Its crystal armor pieces shifted and settled, making soft chiming sounds like wind through glass. You know what? Katie said thoughtfully. I think you've just been looking for a friend. All those places you went to, all those ships you met, you were trying to find someone who would talk to you instead of fighting you. The beast lowered its massive head until it was level with the observation window. Katie could see her own reflection in its huge dark eye. But everyone was so scared of how big and strong you are that they forgot you might have feelings too, she continued. That's not fair. Just because someone looks different or scary doesn't mean they're bad inside. Ruth Sullivan felt tears in her eyes as she listened to her daughter. Katie had always been special with animals, but this was beyond anything Ruth had ever imagined. The creature seemed to be waiting for something. It floated motionless near the ship, its attention completely focused on Katie. There was an intelligence in its eyes that was unmistakable now that people were really looking. Katie remembered something her grandmother had taught her about training: dogs. The most important thing, Grandma had said, is to let them know you're in charge, but in a kind way. You have to be firm, but gentle. Looking at the enormous beast, Katie realized that maybe what it needed was not a fight, but guidance. Someone to show it how to behave properly. Someone to give it rules to follow so it would not be confused anymore. Taking a deep breath, Katie looked directly into the creature's eye and spoke in the same clear, firm voice her grandmother had used when training Max. Sit, she said. The words seemed to hang in space between them. On every ship in the sector, military officers held their breath. Dr. Hamilton watched her instruments with wide eyes. Commander Morrison gripped the arms of his chair. The Warbeast, the unstoppable destroyer that had defeated the greatest warriors in the galaxy, slowly and carefully lowered its massive body into a sitting position. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of people gasping in shock throughout the fleet. The creature that had terrorized half the galaxy had just obeyed a simple command from an 8-year-old girl. Katie clapped her hands together in delight. Good boy. You are such a good boy. The beast made that soft purring sound again, and something that might have been a smile seemed to cross its features. For the first time in centuries, the Warbeast looked peaceful. Commander Morrison opened communication channels to every ship in the fleet. Did everyone see that? Confirmed, sir, came voices from dozens of ships. The creature followed the child's command. Dr. Hamilton was frantically taking notes. This changes everything we thought we knew about this creature. It's not a mindless destroyer. It's intelligent, emotional, and apparently it's been looking for someone to communicate with all this time. Katie continued talking to her new friend, telling it stories about Earth and about all the animals her grandmother had cared for. The beast listened to every word, seeming to understand far more than anyone had thought possible. And in that moment, the course of galactic history changed forever. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting the same impossible story. The Warbeast, the creature that had destroyed entire fleets and terrorized whole star systems, had sat down when a human child told it to. On the colony ship New Hope, Katie Sullivan continued her conversation with the massive creature as if nothing unusual had happened. To her, it was perfectly normal that the beast had listened to her. Animals always listened when you spoke to them with kindness. "See? I knew you were a good boy," Katie said, pressing her hands against the window. "You just needed someone to understand you." The Warbeast remained in its sitting position, its enormous crystal body reflecting the light from nearby stars. Its head was still level with the observation window, and its dark eyes never left Katie's face. Occasionally, it would make soft sounds that seemed almost like words in a language no one had ever heard before. Dr. Hamilton worked frantically at her computer, analyzing every sound the creature made. "Commander Morrison, you need to see this data," she said over the communication link. "The creature's brain activity shows patterns I've never seen in any living thing. It's not just intelligent, it might be more intelligent than any of us." Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, still trying to process what he had witnessed. "How is that possible? It's been acting like a wild animal for years." "Maybe that's exactly the problem," Lisa replied. "Think about it. What happens when you take a highly intelligent being and leave it alone with no one to talk to? No one to teach it how to behave in civilized society? It becomes confused, angry, and destructive." Captain Rogers had managed to restore partial power to his ship's communication systems. He could now speak directly with the military vessels that were surrounding them at a safe distance. "This is Captain Rogers," he transmitted. "The creature has made no hostile moves for over 3 hours. My passenger appears to have established some form of communication with it." Admiral Carter's voice came through the speakers from his flagship. "Captain, we need to understand what's happening here. Can the child tell us what the creature wants?" Katie heard the question through the ship's internal speakers. She looked thoughtful for a moment, then turned back to the beast. "They want to know what you need," she told the creature. "Can you show me?" The Warbeast made a series of sounds, some high and musical, others deep and rumbling. Katie listened carefully, nodding as if she understood every word. "He says he's been looking for his family," Katie announced to everyone listening. "He's been alone for a very long time, and he doesn't remember how to find them." Dr. Hamilton felt a chill run down her spine. "Ask him how long he's been alone." Katie repeated the question to the beast. The creature's response was a long, mournful sound that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. "He doesn't know exactly," Katie translated, "but it's been longer than anyone can remember. He thinks maybe his family is gone and that's why he's so sad." The implications of this revelation hit everyone at once. The creature was not a mindless destroyer. It was a lost, grieving being that had been searching for its own kind for possibly hundreds of years. Katie's mother, Ruth, had been listening. From the doorway, she stepped forward and knelt beside her daughter. "Sweetie, can you ask him about the places he attacked? Did he mean to hurt people?" Katie posed the question gently. The beast's response was immediate and filled with what sounded like regret. "He says he was trying to ask for help," Katie explained. "But every time he got close to people, they started shooting at him. He got scared and confused, and when he's scared, his body does things automatically to protect him. He didn't want to hurt anyone." Commander Morrison felt his understanding of the situation shift completely. It was self-defense. The creature was approaching for help, and when we attacked, it defended itself. "That would explain the learning behavior," Dr. Hamilton added. It wasn't adapting to become a better killer. It was adapting to survive our attacks. Katie continued her conversation with the beast, and gradually more of its story emerged. The creature was very old, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. It had been created by an ancient race to be a guardian and protector, but something had gone wrong with its original programming long ago, leaving it confused about its purpose. He remembers being happy once, Katie said, her voice sad. He had a job to do and people he cared about. But then something happened, and everyone disappeared. He's been looking for them ever since. The beast made another sound, and Katie's face lit up. He says I'm the first person who's talked to him like he has feelings. Everyone else just sees him as a monster. Admiral Carter's voice came through the speakers again. Child, this is Admiral Carter of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Can you ask the creature if there's anything we can do to help it? Katie asked the question, and the beast's response surprised everyone. He wants to help people instead of fighting them, Katie announced. That's what he was supposed to do originally. But he doesn't know how anymore, and he's afraid people will always be scared of him. Dr. Hamilton was taking notes as fast as she could write. This was the most important first contact in galactic history, and it was being conducted by an 8-year-old girl. Katie, Dr. Hamilton said through the communication system, can you tell the creature that we're not afraid of him anymore? Now that we understand, we want to help him too. Katie relayed the message, and the beast's entire posture changed. Its crystal armor pieces shifted and rearranged themselves, and the harsh edges seemed to soften somehow. The creature made a sound that was unmistakably happy. Hours passed as Katie continued to serve as translator between the beast and the growing fleet of ships that had gathered to witness this historic moment. The creature told stories of the ancient past, of civilizations that had existed before any current species had developed space travel. It spoke of its creators, who had built it to protect and serve, not to destroy. Captain Rogers had been working with his engineering team to repair the navigation systems. As they finally managed to restore partial control, he made an announcement. We can now alter our course. We are able to proceed to our original destination. Katie looked up from her conversation with the beast. Can he come with us? He doesn't have anywhere else to go, and I promised I'd be his friend. The adults exchanged worried glances. The creature was still enormous and potentially dangerous, despite its newfound peaceful behavior. I don't know if that's safe, honey, her father Danny said gently. But Katie was already asking the beast what it wanted to do. The creature's response was immediate and clear. He wants to stay with me, Katie announced. He says I'm the first real friend he's had in longer than he can remember, and he promises to be good and help people instead of hurting them. Commander Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Admiral Carter, I recommend we allow the creature to accompany the colony ship to its destination. This may be our only chance to establish a permanent peaceful relationship with it. After several hours of discussion between military leaders, scientists, and politicians, the decision was made. The Warbeast would be allowed to travel with the human colonists under Katie's guidance. As the New Hope prepared to continue its journey, Katie pressed her face against the window one more time. Are you ready to see our new home? She asked, her enormous friend. The beast made a sound that everyone now recognized as happiness. For the first time in centuries, it would not be traveling alone through the cold darkness of space. The little girl and the ancient guardian began their journey, together, toward a future that neither could have imagined just days before. 6 months had passed since Katie Sullivan first spoke to the creature that everyone had once called the Warbeast. Now, people across the galaxy knew him by the name Katie had given him, Titan. The massive crystal being had kept his promise to be good, and the results had amazed everyone. The colony ship New Hope had reached its destination, a planet the colonists named New Haven. With Titan's help, they had built their new settlement faster than anyone thought possible. The great creature could move massive rocks and trees with ease, clearing land for farms and buildings in days instead of months. Katie sat on Titan's broad back as he carefully placed the last support beam for the new school building. She had grown comfortable riding on her enormous friend, and Titan moved with the gentleness of a giant trying not to disturb a butterfly. Perfect, Titan, Katie said, patting the crystal surface near his head. The children are going to love their new school. Titan made the soft purring sound that Katie now knew meant he was happy. He had learned to build things instead of destroying them, and the joy in his deep voice was clear to everyone who heard it. Commander Morrison, now promoted to Admiral Morrison, watched from his new office in the colony's administrative building. He still found it hard to believe how much had changed. The creature that had once terrorized the galaxy was now the most effective peacekeeper and construction worker anyone had ever seen. Dr. Hamilton had established a research station on New Haven to study Titan and document everything they learned about him. Her work had already led to amazing discoveries about ancient civilizations and bioengineering techniques that were far ahead of anything modern science could achieve. Katie, Dr. Hamilton called from her laboratory, can you ask Titan about the energy patterns we detected yesterday? Katie slid down from Titan's back and walked over to Dr. Hamilton's workstation. Over the months, she had become the galaxy's first official beast speaker, a job that had never existed before but was now considered one of the most important positions in the known universe. Titan says the energy you found is probably from another guardian like him, Katie explained after having a brief conversation with her friend. He thinks there might be more of them sleeping somewhere in the galaxy, waiting for someone to wake them up. This news sent excitement through the research team. If there were other creatures like Titan, and if they could be awakened and befriended the same way, they could help solve problems across many different worlds. Captain Rogers, now Governor Rogers of New Haven Colony, joined the conversation. Katie, would Titan be willing to help us find these other guardians? Katie asked Titan, and his response was immediate and enthusiastic. He says yes, but only if I come with him, Katie translated. He doesn't want to be alone again, and he says other guardians might be scared and confused like he was. They would need someone to talk to them gently. Over the following weeks, plans were made for the first Guardian search mission. Titan would guide a small fleet of ships to locations where he remembered his fellow Guardians might be sleeping. Katie would serve as the primary communicator, with Dr. Hamilton documenting everything they learned. The success of the mission exceeded everyone's wildest dreams. They found 3 more Guardians in the first month. Each one was sleeping in a different part of the galaxy, waiting in hidden places that only Titan knew about. Katie's approach worked perfectly each time. When the Guardians woke up confused and frightened, she would speak to them the same way she had spoken to Titan. She would tell them they were not alone anymore, that there were people who wanted to be their friends, and that they had important work to do helping others. One Guardian, who Katie named Crystal because of his beautiful blue coloring, became the protector of the trade routes between Earth and the outer colonies. Pirates and raiders who had terrorized merchant ships for years simply disappeared when Crystal began patrolling the space lanes. Another Guardian, called Harmony by Katie, had the special ability to help different species understand each other. She could somehow translate not just words but feelings and intentions between beings who had never been able to communicate before. Diplomatic meetings that used to take months now happened in days with Harmony's help. The third Guardian, who Katie named Sage because he seemed very wise, became a teacher and advisor. He remembered things from the ancient past that helped solve problems no one had been able to figure out before. When the Zephyrian colonies were having trouble with their water supply, Sage showed them techniques his creators had used millions of years ago. Back on New Haven, the colony was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. With Titan's help, they had built not just houses and farms, but also a school, a hospital, and a communications center that connected them to the rest of the galaxy. Katie, now 9 years old, had become something of a celebrity throughout known space. News reporters came from dozens of worlds to interview the little girl who had tamed the Warbeast. But Katie never thought of herself as special. To her, she had just made friends with someone who needed a friend. The important thing, Katie told a reporter from the Galactic News Network, is that everyone deserves to be understood. Just because someone looks different or scary doesn't mean they're bad. You just have to listen with your heart instead of being afraid. Admiral Morrison received regular reports about how the Guardians were changing life throughout the galaxy. Crime rates had dropped dramatically in areas where the Guardians patrolled. Trade and communication between different species had improved, more in 6 months than it had in the previous 100 years. But perhaps most importantly, the Guardians had shown everyone that the most complex problems sometimes had the simplest solutions. All it had taken was one child who was willing to see past fear and speak with kindness. Dr. Hamilton published her research about the Guardians, and it became the most important scientific paper of the century. She discovered that the Guardians were living examples of biotechnology that was so advanced it seemed like magic. They could adapt to almost any environment, live for thousands of years, and had been designed to be the perfect helpers and protectors. Their original creators had built them to take care of younger civilizations, to guide them and protect them as they grew and learned. But when those creators had disappeared long ago, the Guardians had been left without purpose or guidance. They had forgotten their true nature and become lost and confused. Katie had not just tamed the Warbeast. She had reminded him of who he was supposed to be. Years passed, and the Guardians became a normal part of life in the galaxy. Children grew up hearing stories about Titan, Crystal, Harmony, and Sage. New Guardians were found and awakened regularly, each one adding their own special abilities to help make life better for everyone. Katie grew up to become the head of the Guardian Communication Institute, a school where people learned how to talk to and work with the ancient protectors. But she never forgot the simple lesson her grandmother had taught her about animals having gentle hearts, no matter how big and scary they looked. On her 18th birthday, Katie stood in the same observation lounge where she had first met Titan. The massive Crystal Guardian was still there, still her best friend, still ready to help anyone who needed it. "Thank you," she said to him, just as she had every day for the past 10 years. Titan made his happy purring sound and gently touched the window with one enormous finger. In his ancient mind, he remembered the day a small human child had looked past his fearsome appearance and seen the lonely lost soul underneath. That day she had not just saved him. She had saved the entire galaxy by teaching everyone that the most powerful force in the universe was not weapons or technology, but simple kindness and the willingness to listen with an open heart. And across the stars, wherever the Guardians traveled, they carried that lesson with them, proving every day that sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest acts of love.